Trump administration can replace Washington slavery exhibit in Philadelphia, appeals court says. Add AP News as your preferred source to see more of our stories on Google. Add AP News on Google. Add AP News as your preferred source to see more of our stories on Google. Share Philadelphia app. The Trump administration can replace a slavery exhibit at George Washington's home in Philadelphia, a federal appeals court panel said Thursday, striking down a lower court's injunction that required the National Park Service to reinstall the interpretive panels. The unanimous ruling by the three-judge panel of the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said a lower court judge wrongly interpreted Philadelphia's contract claims involving Independence National Historical Park, saying the city merely having standing to sue did not mean its arguments had merit. The panel also praised the plans for the replacement installation, writing that they were full of historical context, despite objections from historians and city officials that the content appears whitewashed. The ruling comes a week after a Massachusetts federal judge ordered the Trump administration to restore sites changed under an executive order calling for the nation's museums, parks, and landmarks to not display elements that inappropriately disparage Americans past or living. The federal government has asked for a stay on that ruling while it appeals. It was unclear how the Massachusetts ruling would affect the restoration or replacement of the panels at the President's House site. About half the large panels at the outdoor exhibit had been restored before a February pause in the work. Phone and email messages left for attorneys representing the city were not returned early Thursday. Messages to spokespeople for the Department of Interior and the National Park Service also were not returned. Read more. Dorn Chavuz, a volunteer for Avenging the Ancestors Coalition, one of the advocacy groups that helped develop the site in the 2000s, said they are disappointed with the decision but are speaking to their attorneys and considering options. For decades, ATAC has worked to ensure that the stories of the enslaved African descendants who lived and labored at the President's house are not erased, overlooked, or misrepresented. The group said in an emailed statement, "That commitment remains unwavering. We believe that historical truth matters, and we will continue to advocate for the protection, preservation, and accurate interpretation of this important chapter of American history." The city of Philadelphia sued in January after the National Park Service, in response to President Donald Trump's executive order, removed the explanatory panels from the President's House site where George and Martha Washington lived with 9 of their slaves in the 1790s, when Philadelphia was briefly the nation's capital. Sign up for Morning Wire. Our flagship newsletter breaks down the biggest headlines of the day. Email address: sign up. By checking this box, you agree to AP's terms of use and acknowledge that AP may collect and use your data pursuant to our privacy policy. The city had worked in tandem with the federal government, historians, and private partners to create the exhibit in the early 2000s as part of a long-standing cooperation agreement over the downtown historical park, and contributed $1.5 million toward its creation. The city argued that federal government must consult with the city before making changes to the President's House site. Justice Department lawyers argued the administration alone can decide what stories are told at National Park Service properties. In its ruling Thursday, the appeals panel said the maintenance portion of the contract between the city and the federal government could not be interpreted to mean the site would remain as it was when it was completed. The duty to maintain is better understood as a general management obligation that accompanies ownership, not a promise that the exhibits will forever remain in place regardless of the owner's wishes, the opinion said. Cassie contributed from Boston.